I think is critical for people to understand is, look, there is a war going on. It is not optional. It is not, well, I think I need to take a break and go play my video game. Or, excuse me, the Super Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, the Hula Bowl, the Happy Bowl, and the Toilet Bowl are all on right now. And I just want to take a break from reality. Well, the ultimate divorce from reality is the fact that this stuff is playing out. It's playing out in the theaters. It's playing out in movies. It's playing out in the headlines. 100 people. You carried the story on Skywatch. 100 kids getting demon-possessed by a dark man. The amount of the werewolf in London. It's not a song by, I forget who first sang that, but now they're werewolf sightings. People are having preternatural events. Now, again, this is what's going to happen, and the gates of hell will not prevail. But if they're not going to prevail, it certainly doesn't say they're not going to attempt to. So let's get to the Command Sybil right now, because basically on your new work, and I think, by the way, I love the title, okay? You know me. I want Tom Horn's bottom line, okay? And this is the bottom line. The final Roman emperor, the Islamic Antichrist, and the Vatican's last crusade. How many times have we heard that the Vatican, or that the Holy Roman Empire, the 10 nations, blah, blah, blah. I remember saying 20 years ago, what happens if that's Islamic nations? And I think one guy, a newsletter writer, called it Islamistan. And now we've got the absolute playing out of this. And for the record, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to be blown away at how fast this thing takes foot. So, Tom, share if you would, because I think this is the most amazing thing that when you guys were working on the background for part 4, of your series, The Final Roman Emperor, the Islamic Antichrist, and the Vatican's Last Crusade, how the Sibyls, if you will, the prophetesses, and I would say hell's mouthpieces, play so important a role, and that the Vatican believes them. Can you lay that out, sir?
Yeah. So let me first talk about the basic premise of the book, and I wish now that I had Chris Putnam here, because he did a great deal of the research into the prophecies of the Cumae Sibyl as it involved the final Roman emperor, but I can summarize it as I'm part of the book. The last Roman emperor, or if you're out there Googling about this, you might turn up the great Catholic monarch, which is what some of the Catholics also believe. And by the way, if you're listening to this show, this is not something me and Putnam just made up. This is a belief that was extraordinarily believed by the Vatican itself, by the Pope, by the theologians of the Church, all the way up through the 15th century. But even to this day, there are Catholic television shows, blog sites, in which they totally believe in this coming Catholic monarch, and some of them are tying it with the arrival of Pope Francis. Now, why? Well, we'll talk about that in a moment. So, this is a legend. It actually developed this eschatology of the Roman Catholic Church that predicted that in the end time, there was going to be a last emperor, and he would appear on earth. He would reestablish the Holy Roman Empire, and he would stall the coming of the Antichrist. And according to ancient interpretation of the prophecy, the reign of this emperor or monarch would be connected to the arrival of the final pope. So that's what makes this very, very important. And between the two of them, according to Catholic hope, they're going to restore Christendom to its rightful state after a period of apostasy. The prophecy was originally given by one of the Apollonian Sibyls, which we'll define that more in a moment, the Sibyls of Apollo. This one in particular is sometimes called the Tiburtine Sibyl. And let me read you just a part of the prophecy so that you understand kind of where, part of the background to the upcoming book is coming from. Here's part of the prophecy in which he allegedly said under unction. She said, this final emperor, he's going to be, quote, the king of the Romans and the Greeks. He's going to be tall of stature, of handsome appearance, with shining face. He's going to put together in all parts, or well put together in all parts of his body. But he is going to devastate all of the islands and the cities of the pagans and will destroy all idolatrous temples. Let me jump in here for a moment.
Please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel and click the bell to be notified when we post new videos.
And not to confuse people, but when you look at the title of our book, The Final Roman Emperor, the Islamic Antichrist, and the Vatican's Last Crusade, some people think that that title implies that Chris and I believe that the Antichrist is going to be Muslim. And that is not what the title of that book is talking about. Joel Richardson is a friend of mine, but we are not talking about his thesis about the Islamic Antichrist. What we are talking about, and which you will discover in the book, is that what Islam, the radical Islamists today, ISIS for instance, what they believe about the coming of their Mahdi was actually plagiarized hundreds of years ago from this prophecy of the Quayle Sibyl. They took it and they Islamified it, if you will, to be a prophecy about the coming of their end times Mahdi. While the Catholics took this prophecy of the Quayle Sibyl and they Christianized it, or they Catholicized it, to be the coming of the leader of the Vatican. And so both of these actually are derived from an ancient prophecy of the Quayle Sibyl, who's actually talking about the coming of Apollo. So, if that helps you, but in this Tibertine of prophecy, it expands on the coming of this god Apollo and says that he is going to drive all the pagans out and destroy all idolatrous temples. That is why you see the Islamists right now tearing down all these pagan temples, destroying all this stuff that they think belongs to the pagans, killing even Muslims who don't agree with their point of view or their faith, because they believe that that is part of their prophesied duty to wipe out the infidels and to wipe out the apostates. The Catholics, however, believe that the coming Roman emperor is going to work with the final pope, and they're going to purify Catholicism. They're going to drive out all the apostates within Catholicism. Now, keep that in mind, because in a little bit I want to make a point about some of the stuff Pope Francis is doing. But let me get back to the prophecy. He will call all pagans to baptism, and in every temple the cross of Christ will be erected. This is the Catholic version. Then Egypt and Ethiopia will be eager to stretch their hands to God. Whoever does not adore the cross of Jesus Christ will be punished by the sword. When his years have completed, at that time, the prince of iniquity, who will be called Antichrist, will rise from the tribe of Dan. He will be the son of perdition, the head of pride, the master of error, the fullness of malice, who will overturn the world and do wonders and great signs through dissimulation. He will delude many by magic art, so that fire will seem to come down from heaven. Let me jump ahead here. When the Roman Empire shall have ceased, now this starts combining with the prophecy of the Pope, the destruction of Rome, then the Antichrist will be openly revealed and will sit in the house of the Lord in Jerusalem. While he is reigning, two very famous men, Elijah and Enoch, will go forth to announce the coming of the Lord. Antichrist will kill them, and after 3 days they will be raised up by the Lord. Then there will be great persecution, such as has not before nor ever shall be thereafter. The Lord will shorten those days for the sake of the elect, and the Antichrist will be slain by the power of God through Michael, the archangel of the Mount of Olives. End quote. So here you have a very, very ancient, in fact, nobody knows exactly how old this prophecy is, that came from the prophetesses of Apollo, but that was Christianized. Now, by the way, this prophecy was quoted by Justin, who is in direct line with John, the beloved disciple of Jesus. It was quoted by numerous other early church fathers. So there was a great amount of belief system, and this prophecy precedes the early church fathers themselves. So we're talking about something extraordinarily old as Jesus or older. Nobody really even knows how old this prophecy is. but it's definitely talking about the end of time and the final destruction of Rome. Now, here's why this is partly important, and I'll try to move through this quickly. That prophecy, the final Roman emperor, is interesting in light of the current threat of Islam and ISIS, as that prophecy specifically deals with how the final emperor and the Pope are going to rise during a war, they say. And this is part of the prediction that I make in this final book. It's my biggest prediction yet. But it's a war in which the Muslim nation, according to the Quayle Sybil, they invade, they conquer, they occupy Europe.
Please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel and click the bell to be notified when we post new videos.
Catholic scholars today say that's going to be World War III. And then, in a subsequent war following that, Catholic scholars call that World War IV. Europe then is free. Now, why is this important? Because look at what Pope Francis has been saying and doing, even over the last 10 weeks. He has been diligently preaching the last few weeks, almost kind of like the messenger preparing the way, if you will, for the coming of the final Roman emperor. He has been preaching the same thing that the Quayle Sybil said, that this final emperor is not going to lead to the end of the Jewish and Islamic and Catholic faith, but he is going to do away with the division within Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, and he is going to combine these religious systems, Judaism, Catholicism, or Christianity, and the Islamic faith. Now, and I'll come back to what Pope Francis is doing here in a moment, because I want to first throw something out at you here that you need to hear. In the 12th century, there was an abbot by the name of Ordine di Otrante. You can look up his prophecies on the internet. But in the 12th century, here's what he said. He said, when this great monarch and this final great pope arrive, they will precede the Antichrist. He said, the nations will be in wars for 4 years, and a great part of the world will be destroyed, and the sects will vanish. The capital of the world will fall. The capital of the world he doesn't identify, but it's going to fall. Is that America? Is that Rome? We don't know. The Pope will go over the sea carrying the sign of redemption on his forehead, and after the victory of the Pope and the great monarch, peace will reign on the earth. Now, here's the part I want you to hear. The Pope will cross, I'm quoting now Abbot Warden di Otrante, who is reading the prophecy of the Quayle Sybil. The Pope will cross the sea, listen to what he says, in the year when the Feast of St. George, now we did all the research around this, the Feast of St. George is April 23rd. When the Feast of St. George falls on Good Friday, and St. Mark's feast, that's April 25th, falls on Easter Sunday, and the Feast of St. Anthony, that's June 13th, falls on Pentecost, and the Feast of St. John the Baptist, which is June the 24th, falls on Corpus Christi. So he gives a very, very specific timeline. Well, guess what? The concurrences of those feasts will not take place until 2038 and not before. So if you then take the prophecy of the final Roman emperor, the war of the great Catholic monarch that is considered to be World War IV, that lasts 4 years, so you back up. The Pope crosses the sea to Europe from the U.S., where the Holy See is going to be in exile, according to the Pope. That's from the latter part of the World War III aspect of this prophecy. And then the Pope crosses the sea. This would have to be in 2038. Therefore, the war has to end in 2037. I know it's all sounding confusing, but I'm getting somewhere. Which means that it starts 4 years earlier than that, around 2033 or 2034. Let me break it down into something more simple. and these are the most amazing points about what the Pope is doing now and this final book. Number one, the final Roman emperor prophecy happens when the final Pope arrives. So that's the bottom line. When the final Pope arrives on the Malachi list, that is when the final Roman emperor is going to appear. Number two, the Sibyl saw something that is extraordinary. Because don't forget, this was written about literally thousands of years ago. And she literally describes how international democracy will be viewed as a failed system in the world's mind. And therefore there will be a push to return to a global monarchy or a dictatorship with socialist leanings. I mean, is that extraordinary or what? Given what Pope Francis has been saying, what the United Nations has been saying, given that more than 50% of Americans under the age of 30 would vote for an avowed socialist in Bernie Sanders, this seems extraordinary. Thirdly, this new global monarchy or dictatorship is going to result in what the Sibylline called the Golden Age under the return of Apollo Osiris. We can talk more about that if we get time. That's the prophecy on the Great Seal of the United States. Fourthly, at the core,
Please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel and click the bell to be notified when we post new videos.
of the last emperor is the idea that apostate. An apostate is anybody that don't agree with me if I say so, right? They're going to be driven from both the Mohammedan and Christian religion, uniting in a single harmonized and global religious order under the final pope and the final emperor. Now, brother, that is amazing, given what Pope Francis has been saying over just the last 10 days. Only two examples. Number one, he gave an interview a week and a half ago, chock full of commentary, literally torn from the Sibyl's prophecy, for those who understand the prophecy, in which he said, quote, "It is true that the idea of conquest," which is part of the emperor prophecy, "is inherent in the soul of Islam. However, it is also possible to interpret the objective in Matthew's gospel, where Jesus sends his disciples to all nations in terms of the same idea of conquest." This is literally codifying, if you will, the prophecy of the Quayle Sibyl about the final Roman emperor, in that Francis is saying, he even went on to say that Muslim migrants need to breed with Europeans. It's the Europeans that the Quayle Sibyl said would be infiltrated and overthrown by the final Roman emperor and the final pope. He said they need to breed with Europeans to assure their growing dominance and presence throughout Europe. And then just earlier today, and Steve, I think you already know this. I'm sure that you, Hagman, Joe, and Doug already know this. Just today, Pope Francis actually embraced the top imam in a historic meeting at the Vatican, and then he made a cryptic announcement at the end of it, and this is going to have people's mind lit up for a while. He said, "Our meeting is the message."
consider subscribing to our YouTube channel and click the bell to be notified when we post new videos. Please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel and click the bell to be notified when we post new videos.